right, how are we doing, reInvent? Everyone having a good time? Yes, very good, very good. I've flown a long way to be here, a little bit hoarse, so apologies for that. Who here is a Nutanix customer today? We've got smart ones over here, that's good to see. Anyone running VMware today? No, boo, okay, that's okay, we can help you, we can help you there. We're going to talk about, I like to think about Nutanix because of a lot of you that have investigated Nutanix or you're running VMware today, your eye is probably somewhere else, and that's why you're here at reInvent. You're here to talk about AI, you're here to talk about modernizing your workloads and your applications. How am I going to do that faster? How do I divert costs of maintaining and running critical infrastructure today? How am I going to go and take that to the next step? That's really what the business is about. And that's where AWS and our partners here, we're all geared towards helping that journey. But Nutanix can play a key part of that, and I think we're very unknown in that space. We can help you modernize your infrastructure. I like to say that we're moving you to a modern hybrid cloud. We can help you to build apps once under our NKP platform. And if you need to run them at the edge, if you need to run them in the data center, or you want to shift them up to cloud anywhere globally, we can come and help you do that as well. And then enable AI. This is another part of our portfolio, Nutanix AI. How do we help you start small with your AI models? We can help you test them in the cloud at a much lower cost. You can get started quickly. And then if the end state is, I need to run them over here, I need to secure them, I need to do something different, maybe there's a compliance region, we can help you bring those back. So our story is not just around virtual machines and how to give you a better experience running your core infrastructure. It's about how we're accelerating that so that you can focus on what's next for your organization. All right, our global availability. Anyone here actually running Nutanix on AWS today? Come on, I like this guy. All right. Nutanix has 11 different instance types in AWS today. That's going to give you flexibility. Do I want to run a GPU model? Do I need to run storage dense hardware? Do I need to run something that's very compute or memory intensive? We can help you do that. So the flexibility that we've been able to provide you on premises, we can now bring that into the cloud. So very similar to how you would look at an EC2 virtual machine or something today, we bring that but just at a much larger scale. Intel AMX, I touched on Nutanix AI. This is how we're going to help you get started faster, a lot more cost effectively with AI inference in the cloud. You don't need to go and spend a lot on an NVIDIA model that's going to run large. You might want to start small. You might want to start testing an LLM. What's my security model need to look like? How am I going to train a data set from production up in the cloud? I don't need to bring it all. How am I going to secure it? And then sovereign. This is probably one of the things I'm really excited about that we're launching this year, which is Nutanix Sovereign. One of the common bits of feedback I get from public sector, finance customers, healthcare customers is how do I want to run in the cloud, but how do I ensure that my data is sovereign? How is it going to stay here? So our solution runs inside your availability zone, it runs inside your VPC, but we ensure that no metadata, nothing is going to go outside of that. So for customers that are really concerned about where's my data living, what services in US East is it talking to, we can prove to you that that's not there. So that's available in FedGov, it's going into EU, it's coming in Australia and Singapore at the moment. So Sovereign is really exciting for those that want that additional layer of protection. And then hibernation. Another key feature of our capabilities inside the cloud is the ability to hibernate a cluster. So for a DR scenario, we can build Nutanix on AWS, make sure everything's working, we do all our layer 2 stretch, we test all our automation and our blueprints, then we hibernate it and we put it in S3. So you're no longer paying for the compute costs in AWS, you're just simply paying for the S3 storage, which is really low. Now in the case that you need to spin up that environment, you're talking under an hour and you've got the full cluster, the connectivity is there, and your workloads are restored. So we're using this a lot around BCDR. We have an always-on model or we have a hibernate model. This is a really good way to improve your RTO and RPO posture and still keeping the costs really low. And this is where we are. So if you've seen some of the competitors around and what they do, I don't think they've got coverage like this. So we're in every AWS region, every AWS availability zone with multiple different instance types. to help you get what I say is hybrid cloud done right. What does it look like in a bit more detail? So you will have seen, if you've spoken to some of the other SaaS providers here, there's some different models. Do I need to get in that one? There's some different models around how their services interact with the native AWS services that you're using today. So at Nutanix, we do that a little bit differently. So we start with your Nutanix environment that's running here on premises today. And then we'll stretch it up into your AWS VPC that's configured. Now, if you're not running in AWS, we can help you go and set that up. But automatically, we're running on top of the Amazon EC2 Metal instances. Our cluster size is 3. So whether you're starting really small on an M instance or we're up at a bigger i7 instance, we're running 3 nodes to start the cluster in AWS and inside your tenancy. So all the security policies, all the models that you've defined at the top of that VPC are automatically going to be applied downstream straight away. We don't need to worry then about things like transit gateway or how we're going to connect to the native services that you've already got configured, secured, and you're already using. It's already in the same VPC, so we're up and running. And then from there, we can provide it in 3 of the primary layers, which is the compute, so virtual machines and containers. So whether that's with NC2 or NCI, our cloud infrastructure, providing virtual machines, or whether it's with our latest product, NKP, which is doing Nutanix Kubernetes platform, we'll make that available. And then storage. So the efficiency that we bring with storage on premises, we're not making any changes. So the code base for Nutanix, the licenses for Nutanix that you know today on premises are exactly the same up here. There's no difference between what we're running. So when we look at the storage profile, efficiencies on-prem, efficiencies up in cloud is really important. Now we're running this on top of the NVMe storage that's provided inside the bare metal instances. So in terms of if you've done an EC2 VM configuration today and you're selecting your IOPS or you're selecting how much throughput you want, you don't need to worry about that configuration. I like to call it unknown knowns. You know you're probably going to get slugged with an IOPS charge somewhere or a call somewhere. That doesn't really occur with Nutanix because everything is running on the NVMe drives on the bare metal itself. That said, we can expand those with EBS, and we do have some integration points coming with our third-party storage providers over there later in the year. And then networking and security. So whether it's micro-segmentation or whether it's just layer 2 stretching over here, we can stretch that across. So we're not just bringing what you have today on premises to the cloud. We want to modernize as you're doing it. So that may be layer 2 and then micro-seg on day 1. And then we look at integration with all the other native AWS networking. But that's how we're really going to help you to modernize on that step journey. All right, and that hasn't come across really nice. So we've all seen like an 80-20 rule. I like to call it the 80-20-26 rule. 80% of enterprises are using AI today. Everyone here is probably dabbling in it in some form or another. Adopting Kubernetes. Everyone's modernizing their apps. They're going serverless. They're using containers. How are we doing that? That's what's differentiating your business. As you look forward in 5 or 10 years, you're not sitting there going, oh, virtual machines are the greatest thing and they're going to help my business forward. They're not. It's all focused on how we're modernizing our applications, how we're using AI against the data sets that we already run, and all that's being done in the cloud. But virtual machines are still powering 80 to 90% of the workloads that are running your organization today. They're all still running on virtual machines. So while you're here focused on how am I going to modernize, how am I going to integrate with AI, I've still got this huge run component that I need to ensure is smooth, I need to ensure it's cost efficient, and I need to make sure that it's compliant with whatever we're doing. And this holds all of the data that you want to get and train with your LLM, that you need to do inference against. This is where all the applications live that you want to modernize and you want to move. Now, before I joined Nutanix, I worked at AWS for quite a while. And I say start right, and I say start with a modern hybrid cloud platform. Because what we see is that 50%, and this is Gartner's information, not just my made-up figures, so 50% are not going to achieve their cloud and AI vision by 2029. This is just where it's at. And if those of you that have been involved with AWS or cloud for a while, you'll see that it really does happen. Everybody gets stuck somewhere on the journey. And 60% of organizations that went down a cloud-first path with Kubernetes adoption have just stopped completely. And why is that? So interoperability first. How do I ensure that what I'm building up here in the cloud is going to talk to what I've got on premises? How do I know that the latency that I'm running at an edge site is not going to negatively impact the workloads that I'm building in the cloud? Interoperability between multiple systems. If I'm using Windows workloads or SQL workloads that are really old, I can't modernize them out of it. How is that going to talk to the new workloads that are coming up in the cloud? Security. We all had shadow IT, that was, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, that was a term. Security around it. How often have we seen something like, oh, my S3 bucket wasn't secured? In a new environment or in an enterprise environment, we're seeing a very, very brownfield, greenfield approach. There's a team that manage the cloud, and then there's a team that manage your infrastructure on premises. So bimodal operations severely impacts how you run your organization. And the security flow on from this is really negative in terms of the team that have secured on premises have probably been doing it for 10 plus years. They know the security compliance that they need to hit. They know the data retention policies that they have. But when you've gone and built a landing zone up in the cloud, has that translated across? Probably not, because this team is all brand new. They haven't been working in this environment that's been servicing your business, that 90% of the workloads, for the last 10 years. So they haven't evolved. So they're starting off fresh. Okay, so security plays a huge factor. And we see a lot of cloud migrations pause because the security models up there are just incorrect. My favorite one, especially when I start talking about the value of Nutanix in AWS, is around costs. I wish I just got paid on the times that people said, I was told it was going to cost me this much to get into cloud. I've already spent that and I'm only 6 months into my journey. That is my most common piece of feedback I get from anyone that's going on that infrastructure transformation. Now, if you think about taking a virtual machine and modernizing that into cloud itself, it's not a single task. Going into Kubernetes, it's not a single hypervisor change. Like moving a VMware VM to Nutanix, that's just a simple reboot. Taking that VM and figuring out all the dependencies around it, and then putting that into a cloud native construct, that's weeks, if not months. And that's the easy apps. If we start taking 3-tier monolithic apps that have been running for 10 years, we're talking 12 months plus for just an individual workload that's going to go up there. So it's not just the infrastructure costs that come into play, it's the modernization costs around it. Okay, and then my favorite one in here is that you'll say, in 5 years, I'm going to be cloud first, I'm going to have everything cloud native. And you'll get 3 or 4 years into that journey, and then what's going to happen? You haven't migrated enough workloads up into the cloud, and so all of a sudden, I have to repurchase hardware. I have to repurchase licenses on premises. None of this was factored into my TCO or my ROI as to why I said the cloud was going to work for my organization. This is a key reason, again, why these fail. And complexity. Like I touched on a bit on the applications, but the complexity around workload modernization is really there. The simple ones are really simple and they're the low-hanging fruit. If you're already testing, they're probably already done. But the partners that are doing the longer tail of the 3-tier architecture apps, it's taking a longer time. So we're here to help. And we help by starting off with Nutanix Cloud Clusters. So this is NC2. We got a lot of acronyms, just ask me if you need. So we've got Nutanix Cloud Clusters. So this is where we start. This is hybrid cloud done right. So the same license, same code base, same everything from Nutanix on-prem. We stretch it up into AWS, and you can just move your workloads at will. No problems there at all. And then from there, we've got cloud management. A single tool that can look at AWS native, EC2, S3 storage, as well as all the policies that run on-prem today. So you can pick up the blueprints that you've spent a long time designing, automating, architecting, and now I can apply that to a native S3 bucket, or I can apply it to a native EC2 VM, or I can apply it to a virtual machine that's running on top of NC2 in AWS. Really important that this is here, and it integrates with all the tools you run today. So whether it's Terraform, whether it's Ansible, doesn't really matter. We're just going to call that, but we're going to give it to you from a single pane of glass right at the top. And then we've got Now that one's NCM if you want another acronym. And we've got NKP, so our Kubernetes platform. We understand that as you start moving individual workloads over to Kubernetes, it's okay, and you can run the distribution, and it's pretty easy to manage. But when you start looking at it at an enterprise scale, what data needs to be persistent with the Kubernetes workloads? What data is non-persistent with the Kubernetes workloads? How am I managing this distribution across the edge, across the core, across the cloud? Maybe I need to put it in another cloud because I can't find the service I need. How are you going to manage that? So NKP is going to help you do that, again, all through that single seamless pane of glass, to enable you to get faster, manage the distribution and the workloads that are going in. And then our enterprise AI, so NAI, another one for us. So NAI is here so that you can scale the security, the policies, the data from the core, which is going to run in the data center. You're going to pick up that data from the edge, ingest it into the core, run your models against it, and then bring it up into the cloud. Then you're going to run different metrics against that, whether it's analytics, whether it's training a different model that then you can push back down. So we see that the AI requirements around organizations are changing on a day-by-day basis. You can't go through and buy an entire farm of NVIDIA and put it on premises. It's not going to work. It's going to be too expensive. And then what if that fails? And you've now shifted a core workload or a core application onto that. You need to be able to stretch it up. You must be able to do it. And that's where our AI security model with NAI is going to enable you to do that. So we start nice and easy with Nutanix Cloud Clusters, manage it all through NCM. NKP will get your applications and AI. So on the right, you've got your future, and this is what is going to make your now a lot easier. All right, some customer highlights here. So another acronym I haven't talked about today, NDB. So Nutanix Database Service on NC2. For those, anyone running RDS today or using RDS? So RDS, Nutanix NDB is a similar construct to that. So what we try and do at the moment is really look at the database workloads that you've got either on-prem or in cloud, and how we then bring that orchestration layer over the top of it. So we take the change management out of all the database side of things. So now we can manage whether it's Microsoft SQL or whether it's NoSQL, any of those flavors underneath. We can put that under NDB. We can streamline your operations there. And because it's running on top of Nutanix, we can make it a lot more efficient in terms of things like snapshot, backup, DR, et cetera, et cetera. This has been a real big win for us. So if you haven't seen NDB, definitely come and ask us later. Speed. Hand back migrated workloads in 24 hours. So 3 to 4 hours, that's not even close. So 52 minutes it takes once you have your AWS account ID and you go into the Nutanix portal and you say, go build me a cluster in AWS, 50 minutes and you're up and running. Another hour after that, you configure layer 2, that way your IP preservation when you need to go up in the cloud is there and ready for you to go. So in under 2 hours, you've stretched on-prem into the cloud. You can enable mass workload migration at that point. You're not as worried about dependencies because you can start moving VLAN by VLAN, rack by rack. You don't need to really piecemeal each individual workload or each server. We can pick up a whole lot more and move them up at the same point in time. If you're running Nutanix today, that's really easy. If you're coming from another hypervisor on premises or in another cloud, maybe an Azure VM, something like that, it's just a single reboot, okay? So we can stretch it from Azure back over to AWS and do that. And the simplicity. Our DR solution has been something that's really, really evolved over the last 6 to 12 months. And we've got some new product announcements coming with that one in January. But 2 flavors for that. So the first one is our MST product. That's the hibernation that I spoke about before. And the second one is Pilot Lite. So we run that 3-node cluster. It's really light, it's really small. And that protects your tier 0 workload. So something that I can't have any downtime for, we're really low. If that's into AWS, so AZ to AZ, it's metros, so there's no downtime in terms of that in terms of that Pilot Lite cluster. And then we've got integration then with the third-party backup providers. So for a seamless perspective, you could have Cohesity backing up your workloads, T0 is snapshot by Nutanix into AWS, and then everything will go and restore into that cluster. So the DR solution from us is really highly evolved. If you're running Nutanix today, I'd say come and see us over there, get it started. That's a really easy one to go and turn on with big benefits to the business. I'll finish off with our incentives. For those of you that know AWS, there's a ton there. You can procure all Nutanix licenses, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud through AWS Marketplace. Everything is done through either the Nutanix console or the AWS one. We've made it really easy, 30-day free trial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please come and see the team over that. And I'll leave you with some QR codes if you would like some more information. But come and get hybrid cloud done right with Nutanix on AWS. Thank you.